In chapter 2.2, we're going to be discussing circles. I would like you to review pages 208 through 211 in your book. Circles are important in understanding how motion occurs in the physical world, like celestial bodies. Our examples in this section are finding the center and radius from an equation. We're going to have an example of finding an equation of a circle, and then from an equation find the center and radius of a circle. So our major idea is we start out with our center being at 0, 0, and so we're on this graph here we see a circle around our coordinate system, and we see a green triangle that is produced when I have a radius coming from the origin to the edge of the circle. And I will mark each one of these in the triangle, x being the x length of the triangle and y being the y length of the triangle, and r of course is the radius of the circle. Well, this helps us to provide for an equation using the Pythagorean theorem: x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. If we move the center of the circle away from the origin, we have a new formula that is based upon the new center, which is hk. So now our equation becomes x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared, where the center now is hk and the radius is r. Notice the center is hk because we try to get back to the origin, and if we put h in for x we get 0, and if we put k in for y we get 0, so that would be 0, 0, and that would take us back to the origin. So in this example, this is problem 16 on page 212, we're going to determine the center and the radius of the following equation and then graph the circle. So the center, if we look at it from an hk standpoint, we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So the h in this case, in order to get us back to 0, is going to be minus 3. The k in this case is going to be 1. So our center is minus 3, 1. Our radius is the square root of r squared, which is just 4. So now we can draw our circle. We know that the center is at negative 3, 1, which we've put it here in the red dot. And then we have red dots that go around the circle along the symmetrical axes of the circle through the center. And if we count out 4 distances from each of those points, we then can draw a circle around our points. And so there we have it. There's our circle graphically. And now we'll go on to the next problem. So in this problem, this is problem number 24 on page 212. Write the equation of a circle and graph the given. The center is at negative 3, 2, and the radius is 4. So we want to go back to what the equation of a circle is, and we note that we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. Now, I would like you to pause and write the equation for this circle. So if we wanted to write it, we would write it x plus 3 squared plus y minus 2 squared is equal to 16. Right? So that's our equation. And if we wanted to graph the circle, again, we would put our point, the red point is there in the center at -3, 2, and we count out in either of the directions along an axis of the circle that corresponds to the axis of the original coordinate system, and we go out 4 points from each direction of the center. Once we have the 4 points, we then can draw a circle. So I will do that. It's kind of tedious, but we can do that. And there's our circle for this particular problem. So the next thing we're going to do is, from the general form of a circle, write an equation in standard form. So this is problem 44 on page 213. We're going to write the equation in standard form and find the center and radius of the circle. Well, in this case, this is not a nice equation because everything is over on the left-hand side and it's equal to 0. So now we have to reformat our equation. We're going to put the x's together, and we're going to put the y's together, and we're going to move the numbers over to the right-hand side of the equation. So our first step is to look at putting the x's together and the y's together and moving the number to the right-hand side. So we have x squared plus y, or 12x in parentheses, we've moved the x's together, plus y squared minus 14y, parentheses closed, is equal to a minus 84. Now, if you will remember, we need to complete the square. And this is where we take half of the middle term and we square it to 36, and we add 36 to both sides of the equation. So there we have parentheses x squared plus 12x plus 36. Now we're going to do the same with the y terms. We take half of negative 14, we get a negative 7, we square it, we get 49. We add 49 to both sides of the equation, and you can see we have x squared minus 14y, negative 14y plus 49 is equal to a negative 84 plus 36 plus 49. Now we have completed the square. We can call this a square. So we have x plus 6 squared plus y minus 7 squared is equal to a negative 84 plus 85 because we just added the positive numbers. Now we add 85 to a negative 84 and we get 1, and our final equation is parentheses x minus 6 squared plus y minus 7 squared is equal to 1, and our center, of course, we can now find is negative 6 and 7, and our radius is 1. So now we have another problem similar to the one before, and we're going to have you practice this one. This is problem number 53 on page 213. Find the center and radius of the following equation. So I've already set up for you the x's and the y's, and I put the number on the other side of the equation. That's the first step in this process. And so now I want you to pause the video and see if you can finish this particular problem. So our next step is going to take half of the x, the negative 1 for x, right, which would be 1/2, and we square it, so we get 1/4. And we're going to do the same thing, so notice that we're going to have to add 1/4 over on the other side. So just because I put 1/4 there, I have to add it over on the other side in just a second. So I'm going to do this the same. Y squared minus 3/2 y, right? Now I take half of this, so that's 3/4, and I square it, right? So now I'm going to get 9/16. So I have 3/4 on this side. I have to add 1/4 because there it is, the 1/4 I had to add, and I have to add 9/16, right? All right, so now I know I completed the square here. What is that? That's just x minus 1/2, right? And that's squared. And so this is just going to be y minus, I think it's 3/4, right? Yeah. And then over on this side, if I add the same denominators together, I get 4/4 plus 9/16. But this is 16/16 plus 9/16, and we leave these together. This should be 4, by the way. And so the radius is going to be 25/16, right? So that's the radius. So can we find the center? Well, yeah. The center in this case is what? Well, it's 1/2, and I believe it is 3/4, right? And the radius is going to be 5/4 when I take the square root. So that concludes our chapter 2.2. Please review some additional problems in this and work the homework.